care our top-tier gasoline, some sweet and salty snacks for the commute, and a big green dyno for the memories. Find a gas station near you at sinclairoil.com. Sinclair, fill up your life.
Does your student have a hard time getting up in the morning? Or struggle to fit certain classes into a packed schedule? Consider a few online classes at Mountain Heights Academy, a tuition-free online public charter school. Any Utah student in grades 9 through 12 can replace a few traditional classes with high-quality online courses and get the best of both worlds. Their teachers have years of experience in digital education, and all courses meet Utah graduation requirements. Learn more at mountainheightsacademy.org.
If you want high-quality truck bed liners and accessories designed to endure the elements and last a lifetime, ask for Line-X spray-on protective coatings and travel on. Line-X it. See what's possible.
Get Line-X spray-in bed liner at Jordan Camper, 7000 South State in Midvale. Does your truck bed need a facelift? At Jordan Camper, not only do we carry Line-X spray-on coatings for your truck bed, but we feature tonneau covers to keep your truck bed protected and covered from the heat, cold, rain, and snow. All the major brands with full warranties. From stylish one-piece models, soft and firm folding covers, to retractable and roll-up options. Give your truck a stylish new look with a one-piece tonneau cover from ARE. Jordan Camper is the candy store for truck accessories. Come in and see what's new at 7000 South State in Midvale. Information at jordancamper.com.
And I said to myself, sit down, you're rocking the boat.
Join Utah Festival Opera and Musical Theater July 5th through August 3rd for show-stopping performances in Logan. Professional performers from Broadway and all over bring you Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats, the lively classic Guys and Dolls, the hilarious Anything Goes with spectacular tap dancing and music by Cole Porter, cult classic Little Shop of Horrors, and Puccini's opera Gianni Schicchi with its sequel Buoso's Ghost. Stop the commercial! I'm interrupting myself to tell you that Utah students K through 12 can get a free ticket to all Utah Festival performances this summer. Claim yours online now. Where was I? Oh yeah. Cult classic Little Shop of Horrors and Puccini's opera Gianni Schicchi with its sequel Buoso's Ghost. Plus, late-night cabarets, 5 concerts, breakfast with the stars, academy classes, and more. Tickets at utahfestival.org. utahfestival.org.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dyno Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Ricky Meese.
A new accident with possible injuries. This is going to be on I-80 at Parley Summit. Looks like everybody so far is over to the right shoulder. And we have the final cleanup of an accident at Wall Avenue and 2nd Street in Ogden. Look for Weber County drivers to scoot over into the right lanes to get around it. Get triple reward points on your Rewards Visa card from Cypress Credit Union when you spend on gas and travel from now through August. Learn more or apply today at cypresscu.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We'll see sunny skies with 88 today as a high. Sunshine again on the 4th of July with a high of 86. Then a warming trend starts Friday, reaches 100 degrees early next week. Right now, 81 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome to Inside Sources. I'm your host, Adam Gardner, here with Rusty Cannon, filling in for Boyd Matheson. Since he's the voice of reason, we're going to go in the other direction today.
Yes.
Maybe a little
opposite
bit.
directions.
We actually have a really great show today. We're going to continue talking about the debate performance of President Biden and what is happening right now, where we know that last Sunday, the Biden family, some close advisors had a meeting at Camp David to talk about what's going to happen. Do we want the president to drop out? We've also been hearing from different top Democratic advisors, either to the DNC or to President Biden, that he told me that he is planning on dropping out. And so whether that's true or not, it means that highly placed Democratic sources could be even planting these stories of like, hey, we got to push the momentum here to see if we can get him out. And then there's obviously some that are very loyal to the Biden family and the administration and benefit from that want to keep him in.
Yeah, it's been interesting as well to see the leaks start to come, right? Where you have leaks about debate preparation, how things went down. We heard the 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. line the other day. That's been fodder for a lot of talk since. And it's interesting just to see, okay, you think about the motivation for them to start doing these leaks. Those are definite leaks in the boat.
Well, we are really lucky to have Chris Cameron from the New York Times. There was a fantastic article in the New York Times called Exploring Other Options for Democratic Presidential Candidate. Chris, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Hey, Adam, thanks for having me.
Okay, let's get right to it. What was the impetus of writing this article? What's been going on? What's happening for those in the know?
Well, sure. So, of course, Biden debated Trump on Thursday and had a very poor performance, and that has sort of triggered a panic within the Democratic Party, who are questioning, some are questioning sort of his place as the presumptive nominee of the party. It's been a very fluid situation. Things have been changing every day. On Monday, there were some Democratic lawmakers who, said they were sticking by President Biden, but said the campaign needed to have some kind of change to get back on track. On Tuesday, we had one congressman say Biden should step aside, and then other vulnerable House Democrats in swing districts then said, hey, we think he's going to lose in November. So we're seeing some real shifts within the party on this issue day by day.
So, Chris, your article focused a little bit more on what might come next. The natural question is, okay, if this happens, who steps up or who gets recruited, I would say.
Sure.
Tell us about those. Who's being floated at this point?
Sure. I've heard from some in the Democratic Party that, if the president does decide to step aside, the most obvious successor would be the vice president, Kamala Harris. She was nominated for and elected to that position with the understanding that she could step up for Joe Biden, who, was 77 when he was elected and would be 81 on Election Day. Now, there are others who are definitely in contention as well. There's Governor Gavin Newsom of California. There's Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, and Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania. I would say those are some of the other top major contenders that people are talking about. And then, there's a range of other possibilities. When you think of like three candidates who have run for president before in the Democratic Party, there's Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Senators Cory Booker and Amy Klobuchar. Those three ran in the 2020 primaries. It's a long list of potential people who could step in.
Okay, so let's say the president does drop out. What is the process for someone else to fill those shoes? Is this a behind the scenes, in the smoke-filled room where they just kind of decide, the powers that be like, okay, it's Kamala, this vice president, she's our gal? Or is it Gavin Newsom has been waiting in the wings and has been, out there visibly, debating Ron DeSantis, and maybe he wants a shot? What's the process for someone to actually become the nominee if Joe Biden drops out?
Sure. I mean, at that point, it really starts to become very unpredictable. That's a scenario that some Democrats have been trying to avoid. If Biden steps out, all of those thousands of Biden delegates for the Democratic convention in August become free to vote for whoever they want. And so, basically it becomes, an open convention where people are being discussed. It is sort of a chaotic and unpredictable situation, and that's a real risk for the party. I mean, there are risks either way. Joe Biden was already an unpopular incumbent president before he walked onto the stage to debate Donald Trump last week. But there are risks to replacing him and risks with each of the contenders that we discussed in that story. When you talk about Kamala Harris, who's probably the most known quantity here, she's been weighed down by low approval ratings of her own that have been barely higher than the president. Everyone else of the main contenders that we list, who are mostly fairly popular governors in their own states, they have never endured the vetting and unique challenges of a presidential race. There's a long list of presidential candidates who look great on paper and ultimately did not resonate with voters. And I think that's the conversation that all these delegates are going to be having if it came to that scenario where Joe Biden stepped aside.
So, Adam, if you look through history, I think I remember reading about, was it Garfield he had died of a gunshot wound eventually, but he was nominated at the Republican conventions in the 1800s after like 37 ballots or something. I'm thinking, I don't know if you have thoughts on this as well, Chris. A floor fight, I guess as I would put it, it seems like it would be extremely messy. You would not have any idea how it turns out without careful planning. It seems like a pretty bad idea.
Sure. I mean, it would be a recipe for chaos at the convention. This is sort of why, everyone is, or at least, some top Democratic leaders are actively saying we should avoid this situation. I mean, you had Jamie Harrison, who's the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, say last night, we have already had a process, millions voted for Joe Biden in the primary. We have our nominee. And if that changes, then everything that was organized, to sort of get behind Biden, that all changes. It becomes very chaotic and unpredictable.
Well, Chris, that sounds actually awesome as a spectator. I would love to see something like that. It would make me watch a convention. And so I think that would be great. I want to get your take on this. Is it better, Democrat insiders, or just your personal opinion, is it better to have a governor of a swing state where you're trying to capture that state's electoral votes? Do you go after Kentucky, a state you don't normally win, but they have a very popular Democratic governor? Do you stick with Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris, who's from California? You're already going to get those votes. What would be a strategy there?
Well, I can only speak to my reporting, but certainly those are the conversations that people are going to have about these candidates. Kamala Harris is a known quantity here. She ran for president. She ran against Joe Biden. She was elected to the position that she currently has. But then when you talk about someone like Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer, they're popular in their own states. Gretchen Whitmer is popular in a swing state. But does that translate to a strong presidential candidate? There are a lot of different ways that you can look at this. And it's going to be a very spirited conversation in the party if it does come to that.
You mentioned J.B. Pritzker and Josh Shapiro in your article. Those are two governors that I did not consider. Could you give our listeners kind of a short background on each of those governors?
Oh, sure. So Governor Pritzker, has been a Biden surrogate out on the campaign trail, and he's been really known for his pugilistic confrontations of Donald Trump. When the former president was convicted in his trial, there were a lot of other Democrats that were sticking to very carefully worded talking points. And, Pritzker said, the former president is a felon and he's a grifter, and that fiery demeanor and his attacks against Trump have sort of gotten him, praise and applause on the campaign trail while stumping for Biden. He's had a significant progressive record as a two-term governor. And another obvious advantage is Mr. Pritzker is a billionaire. His wealth is somewhere around $3.5 billion. He is one of, if not the wealthiest elected official in the country. And he's not shy about using those funds on his political ambitions. I mean, in his 2 campaigns for governor, he spent a total of $350 million on those 2 campaigns.
I think Bernie Sanders is going to have an issue with him. He doesn't pay his fair share, right? So that might not be the candidate.
Chris, this was great. We actually have to leave it there. Chris, from the New York Times, your reporting was excellent. I encourage everyone to go and read that article. Thanks so much for being with us. Next, we're going to talk to Andrew Van Dam about analyzing religion in America.
Utah State is clearing house.
It intends to fire head football coach Blake Anderson.
Days ago, he's decked out in Utah State gear, and then this happens.
2 others also fired.
The Aggies are rocked by more allegations of misconduct. The program and the school's reputation are again at stake. Stay updated this week on KSL News Radio.
If you had your own personal nutritionist, what would you ask her? Maybe you'd ask her, look, you got to find a way for me to have sugar because without sugar, I don't want to live. Or maybe you'd say, I want to cook better so that my children have better eating habits and don't struggle with their weight the way I have my whole life. I bring this up because if you go to SOTA Weight Loss, SOTA weightloss.com, there's a button right there you can click on. It says, request a nutritionist callback, and she'll call you right back.
Yeah, what you find out is that idea that you may have to lose out on sugar is unfounded because there's a lot of other great products on the market that you're going to love.
They're sweet.
That don't have that crazy high content of sugar. My daughter lost 42 pounds on this program, and they can help you too. Their goal is to make sure you keep that weight off so that relationship goes on even after you've reached your goal weight for as long as it takes in the maintenance phase. Find out more. Go to sotaweightloss.com, spelled SOTA.
And click on that button that says request a nutritionist callback.
It stands for state of the
art.
It's game time, and you're in the locker room ready to take the field. Suddenly, you notice a player you don't recognize. He's wearing your team's jersey, and he even knows your name, but you've never seen him before until now. Would you trust this stranger with your team's playbook? Because that's exactly how phishing scams work. The first quarter of 2022 saw the highest volume of phishing attacks ever recorded. Protect your business with the Les Olson Security Suite from Les Olson IT. Learn more about it at lesolson.com.
The Salt Lake Chamber is Utah's voice for business. Okay, that sounds great, but what does it really mean? Well, as Utah's largest and longest-standing business association, they support and champion community prosperity throughout the state. And if you're in business, well, that's a very good thing for you. Be sure to listen to the Chamber's Speaking on Business, weekdays at 7:20, 11:55, and 5:20 p.m. on KSL News Radio.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Did you know your skin is the largest organ of your body? Huh? That's why you should shower with Old Spice Super Hydration Body Wash instead of plain old bar soap. Love your skin by super hydrating it with vitamin B3 and glorious notes of vanilla and shea. Did you know that my super hydrated skin is the second largest organ of my body? The first is my heart. Old Spice. Men have skin too. Old Spice Super Hydration Body Wash. 24/7 renewing moisture. With daily use.
Hi, I'm Angie Hicks, co-founder of Angie. And one thing I've learned is that you buy a house, but you make it a home. Because with every fix, update, and renovation, it becomes a little more your own. So you need all your jobs done well. For nearly 30 years, Angie has helped millions of homeowners hire skilled pros for the projects that matter. From plumbing to electrical, roof repair to deck upgrades. So leave it to the pros who will get your jobs done well. Hire high-quality certified pros at Angie.com.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, dozens of towns around Utah holding parades and races on the 4th of July. That means a lot of road closures. Second, a big wildfire near Oroville, California has injured 4 firefighters, forced 13,000 people to evacuate. Third, a Republican candidate for governor trying to use Utah's grandma law to get records on the primary election last month. 81 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm your co-host, Rusty Cannon. I'm here with Adam Gardner. Adam, we're live again. This can be a dangerous proposition, as we usually do KSL.
It hasn't been
night.
so far, but
no,
we're good.
No, I haven't hit
Usually
any...
we do a pre-recorded show, so if we mess up, you don't hear that.
If I hit one of these buttons wrong, I think it will launch a missile at some point. But, we have a guest with us on to talk about religion in America next, and this will be a very interesting topic of conversation, an article written with the Washington Post. We have joining with us Andrew Van Dam. Andrew, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, geez, thanks for bringing me in, talking about religion live on air. I'm sure nothing can go wrong.
Well, before we talk about that, this is coming from a guy named Rusty Cannon, and I'm sure you get everything. I just want to ask, what's it like being a Van Dam, for those of us that know? Are you related to the action star Jean-Claude? Can we call you Jean-Claude?
I would strongly prefer if you called me Jean-Claude, though I will note that unfortunately we are not related because guess what? That is actually that dude's stage name. He went out there, he could pick any name in the universe, and he picked mine, which I think says something pretty good about Van Dam.
All right, well, that's good. That's good. I'm probably getting off track, Adam, but I just had to ask. Names are a great thing, and you've got a good one. So you wrote a great article about religion in America and the diversity of religion in America. Tell our listeners about this. This is some really interesting data that we'll dig into, but tell us kind of what the article was based on.
Right. So it is based on two different things. The first is the United States Religion Census. Now, that sounds kind of official. It is slightly less official than that because the government doesn't measure religion in America, and it hasn't since around the 40s or 50s. And so we get the religion census from religious statisticians who kind of picked up the baton. And it's this private group who, out of the goodness of their hearts, out of their devotion to data, with a shoestring budget, to contact every church they can find in the United States. It's hundreds of thousands of churches. They ask, how many adherents do you have, that kind of thing. And they break it down by insanely detailed denominations, like every flavor of Baptist you could imagine. And they put it all together every 10 years in this fantastic document.
So what does the breakdown look like across the country?
All right. So if we just do a bird's eye view, the first thing you see is America is very heavily Catholic. Catholic is the single biggest religion in the country, but that's only because we are lumping together we're splitting apart all of the other Protestants, because Protestants, that's their whole thing, is splitting apart from the Catholic Church. They have been splitting since time immemorial. We have hundreds of different Protestant denominations in this country. So when you combine the Protestants, they actually outnumber the Catholics by a fair bit, and the country breaks down into roughly, and this is very roughly, a Catholic Northeast and Southeast, as you can imagine, from Italian Americans in the Northeast and Mexican Americans in the Southeast, and then an enormous southern area, which is Southern Baptist, an enormous area on the northern plains, which you can probably guess is Lutheran from all of the northern Europeans, the Swedes, the Germans who settled there. And then finally, we have one more cluster which stands out, which might be, you might have guessed, is that Utah and eastern Idaho is fairly Mormon, the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints.
Yes, we have heard of it.
So you mentioned in there that there's 650,000 just in the Salt Lake metropolitan area. Are you seeing clusters like that throughout the country of other types of religions?
There are some, but and especially, like I said, with the only one that really challenges the Mormons in terms of intensity is the Southern Baptist in the South. There are spots in the South, particularly in Tennessee, where we do see religious adherents coming up somewhat close to the sort of Mormon belt, the Book of Mormon belt, since we call it the Bible belt. I suppose we call this the Book of Mormon belt, the Doctrine and Covenants belt, the Pearl of Great Price belt here. But we do see the intensity in those two places. That would probably be America's most religious places. And I know you're probably going to get to this later, but I will say that if we look at who attends church most often, Utah does come out number one. So in terms, if you're just asking where where we do see the strongest pocket of religiosity, it really is the great state of Utah.
So I was going to ask you, was this a measurement of activity in the religion or just affiliation with the religion, right? I mean, you have a lot of people that might, if asked in a survey, yes, I am Catholic, or whatever the religion is. Did this also look into the level of activity or just affiliation?
Oh, man, that is such a good question, because remember, this first source, we were just talking to religious statisticians, and so they're just talking to the churches. So it's not even, do I say I'm Mormon? It's, does the LDS Church say I'm a member, or does the Catholic Church say I'm a member? And, of course, there is a big gap between what we say religious-wise and what we actually do. And that's always been a challenge for us. But we've got this new source, which is fascinating, which can tell us people's actual religious behavior. And that comes from a University of Chicago economist named Devin Pope, who had cell phone data, tracking data for COVID-related research. You remember how we were looking at, people's travel patterns, who slowed down, what were the biggest risks of spreading and that kind of thing. And he was able to use that same cell phone data for the period before the pandemic to look at something else, to look at how often people actually attend a place of worship. Because in surveys, something like 22% of Americans will say, I attend church every week. Well, geez, if you look at actual behavior, everyone knows that's an overestimate. And so Pope was actually able to look at who does really get up, hop in the minivan and actually go to church weekly. And he finds the numbers quite a bit lower. It's definitely not 22%, though honestly, for some churches, in Utah, it could be pretty high. For example, our friends in Utah have the highest, actual church attendance, proven, not just I'm claiming on some survey that I'm religious, but at least 12% of Utahns, and it's probably quite a bit higher because these numbers are underestimates, at least 12% of Utahns go to church every week. That is more than twice the national rate.
Wow. This talks about trends. What does the data that we see now tell us about the future trends in religion in America?
Oh, man. So there is one big trend which sits above all of them. I'm sure you've heard it before. They typically refer to it as the rise of the nuns, but that is N-O-N-E nuns, because the actual nuns, the Catholic nuns, are slipping. America's Catholic population has fallen slightly over the past decade, but the real decrease since 1990, which is sort of the inflection point for American religion when religion started dropping here, is the real decrease comes in Protestant. Now, that may not be the non-denominational Protestants or the evangelical groups, but that is, or missionary groups like LDS who do not consider themselves Protestant but would fall in this category. But this would be like the mainline Protestant denominations, your Methodists and Presbyterians, and that is where we're seeing a pretty large decline as people with religious unaffiliation rise.
Yeah, that would be the trend that we would assume is coming based on how things are going. Andrew Van Dam writes with the Department of Data column each week for the Washington Post. Very interesting discussion. Thanks for joining us today on the show, Andrew.
Oh, geez, thanks for bringing me in. I really appreciate it.
Hey, you bet. All right, stick with us, folks. Next, we're going to get really deep into the Supreme Court and some of their decisions. They've been throwing a lot at us. Adam and I are going to discuss it next.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. Utah's lieutenant governor is telling the county clerks around the state to turn down public records requests from Phil Lyman, who was defeated by Governor Spencer Cox in the Republican primary. He'd asked for records of cast votes, ballot images, and other materials that Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson says are considered election returns. And she points out that 2 years ago, a court ruled election returns are not public records under Utah's grandma law. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The two astronauts stuck aboard the International Space Station while Boeing tries to fix a problem with the Starliner space capsule. Well, are they stuck? ABC's Alex Stone reports.
While NASA and Boeing push back on using the term stranded for astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, they are on the International Space Station much longer than had been planned, and with leaks and malfunctions on the Boeing Starliner, there is no timetable for when they might return. Alex Stone, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average barely down 23 points, while the NASDAQ is up 159. And our KSL weather looks like the 4th of July just couldn't be any prettier. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
When you crash your car, you get it fixed. When your computer crashes, you get a new one. But what will you do if you've been saving in a 401k or an IRA and the market crashes? If you're in your 30s or 40s, you'll be just fine. But if you're in or near retirement, you could be in trouble. Mike Stevens and his team at Capital Wealth Advisors are here to help. They can run a risk analysis to see if you're too heavily invested in the market. Don't let the ups and downs of Wall Street control you or your retirement dreams. Call 801-210-5500 today to schedule your risk analysis with Mike Stevens and the team at Capital Wealth Advisors. That's 801-210-5500. Crashes happen. Question is, are you ready? Capital Wealth Advisors, 801-210-5500. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor.
Eric was way behind on his taxes.
I owed a lot of money to the IRS, almost $15,000. I tried to make payments.
The IRS wasn't satisfied with Eric's efforts, so they came after him full force.
They're coming to put a lien and a hold on all my income, my home, my car. I was just overwhelmed at what to do.
Then Eric called Optima Tax Relief.
When Optima Tax got involved, the calls would stop, the threats would stop. It was easy like 1, 2, 3.
Optima Tax Relief is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and their team of expert tax professionals took care of Eric's problem.
I owe $15,000, and now my debt is clean. I don't owe anything.
Take Eric's advice.
If you have a tax problem, you need to call Optima Tax now.
Call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-721-3955. 800-721-3955. 800-721-3955.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Tim and Amanda.
One of the things I love about radio is that we are all hearing it at the same time. One of the differences between that and just scrolling on your phone is that I don't know when that story was posted. Maybe an hour ago, maybe 3 days ago.
To your point about who wrote it, where did it come from, and is it dated information, our hope every day is that we can provide a more broad spectrum of information on a single topic that you can then take and make decisions on your own.
Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
A lot of problems on our side streets. Crews are getting ready to block off lanes of travel in Sandy due to a nasty rollover accident at 9400 South 13th East. It's a spot you may just want to avoid. We have an auto pedestrian crash at West Temple and 3300 South, and a crash in Cottonwood Heights near 1800 East Fort Union Boulevard. That's 70th South. Get ready for memorable summer evenings with the Utah Symphony, July 5th through August 9th in Park City. Tickets are on sale now at DeerValleyMusicFestival.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny and 88 today, sunshine again on the 4th of July with a high of 86. And a warming trend starts Friday. We'll reach 100 degrees early next week. Right now we're at 82 degrees. It's sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I am your host, Adam Gardner, here with Rusty Cannon, and we are filling in for America's voice of reason, Boyd Matheson.
Yes, he is.
You know, Rusty, we have talked a little bit on this show. We talked about this on Monday and on KSL at night, which airs from 7 to 9 p.m. every weekday night. We have talked a lot about the various SCOTUS rulings, the Supreme Court of the United States.
Yes.
It's really interesting because this is the end of their term, so everything's coming out kind of right now. And in fact, some of the bigger cases have been overshadowed by, and we've talked a lot about like the Chevron doctrine being overturned and the deference to different federal agencies. That's now gone. And we want to get into a little bit more the immunity ruling. In fact, there was something that you pointed out to me in the majority opinion written by Justice Roberts. He says, as for the dissents, so we had a couple of dissents.
It was Sotomayor, Jackson, and who am I forgetting? There was a 6-3.
Kagan.
Yeah.
So it would have been Kagan. So it would have been Brown and Kagan.
Yeah.
So he says, as for the dissents, they strike a tone of chilling doom that is wholly disproportionate to what the court actually does today. And we've seen that. I mean, Justice Sotomayor, she wrote in her dissent that the President of the United States could mobilize the military and assassinate his political opponents.
Wrong.
Rusty, does it say anything about that in the majority opinion?
Not at all. And that's what I've been so frustrated with the commentary since this came out, to where it's just plain wrong. And so many times you wish that everyone that would comment on something like this would just take the time to read. You don't even have to read all 78 or 118 pages, whatever it is, but just to read maybe the syllabus to understand what is written. I mean, in fact, there was some very pointed language in there. Roberts used the terms, and maybe they're always this pointed, but I just don't remember them being this pointed. He talks about their sources as being cherry-picked, the dissents. And then he even goes on to just say, quote, unable to muster any meaningful textual or historical support, the principal dissent suggests ... And he goes on. But I don't know if they're always this pointed at each other.
But it's true
sharp.
What he's saying. He's like, what he's saying is, you are not able to take in historical fact-based arguments, so you're making up hypotheticals.
Yeah.
And the court does that all the time. They say, well, what if this happens? Yeah. Like, how will you deal with that? But the interesting thing here is you have kind of the far right and the far left, and I get down that deep, dark hole of Twitter and X,
yes,
where you just kind of follow what's trending.
Yeah.
And when this was trending, presidential immunity, you had some on the left, and I heard a congresswoman did an interview with MSNBC, and she said that, this allows President Biden to use the military to assassinate the Supreme Court, the conservative members of the Supreme Court, to then fill their vacancies. That was a member of Congress saying this. I can't remember her name because I'd never seen her before. But that's the kind of crap you're hearing on the left. And on the right, you're hearing President Trump has absolute immunity.
Wrong.
When he was president, he could do whatever he wanted, and every one of these charges that's coming against him, he's immune because he was the president.
Yeah,
is that true?
Yeah, so let me read a little bit more of what he said in the majority opinion. This is important. He said, I can't even pronounce the word, conspicuously absent is mention of the fact that since the founding, no president has ever faced criminal charges, let alone for his conduct in office. And accordingly, no court has ever been faced with the question of a president's immunity from prosecution. All that our nation's practice establishes on this subject is silence, meaning this has never been brought up before, but it is a very good question. And all of the kicking and screaming that is just so misplaced, I think just forgets history as recent as a few years ago. Virtually every president has probably initiated some sort of military action that's killed people. Probably most presidents have done, many different things where lives have been lost or tragedy happens. This has never been, this question has never been asked. And what the court clearly did, which is not being articulated in these narratives, is said there's really kind of three buckets. There's the official capacity, immunity, right? Which makes sense. You go to war, people are getting killed, immunity for official acts. Then there's ones that are in that outer perimeter of the official acts that it says we're going to assume that you have immunity, but you can prove otherwise.
Yeah,
that's a presumption.
A court
right?
would have to prove that.
Yeah, exactly, which is completely normal. And then the third is the unofficial acts, you are fair game. So the court did nothing to exonerate President Trump or any president at this point. All they did is say, you have basically those three buckets. We're kicking it back down to the lower courts, where then you can really think about this over the long term. And that's what is so good to hear out of reasonable justices that say, listen, we all need to calm down. And this should not be about, I just get so tired of everybody wanting to get the other side at this point. In this case, whether it's President Trump or President Biden, thinking only in the moment and not thinking about the future, that no, this goes way beyond those that are here for the next 4 years. This goes, decades from now, 100 years from now. We will face this question again, and we have to get this right.
So I think you made a really good point, because I feel like the Supreme Court did a really good job of something that they haven't faced before. So they had to kind of tiptoe around the issue of Donald Trump. So they knew that this whole thing was brought because of Donald Trump, but they knew whatever they were going to say would affect all future presidents with this precedent. And so that's really important, because they couldn't just take the case right before him and say, Donald Trump, in this specific case, we're not judging your immunity. We're just telling the lower courts how to define what immunity is. So regardless, we've gone through kind of the history of that, but let's not kid ourselves. This was a really big win for Trump. And the reason it was is because we've already seen in the Manhattan DA case, where he was supposed to be sentenced already, or just a couple of days ago, or in a couple of days. And now, because he's claiming presidential immunity, they now have to have a separate hearing, and the judge will have to decide which one of these buckets his actions fall under. So even though, clearly paying hush money to a prostitute from your business does not, that's not an official act as president, but he's claiming it, and now we have to go through that process. So what it really does is delay these cases, and that's what he's hoping for.
Yeah, and it's fine to put, in my mind, to put that in current context, but here's what they also said. They said this case poses a question of lasting significance, and it gets to the point that you and I were just making. When may a former president be prosecuted for official acts taken during his presidency? Our nation has never before needed an answer, but in addressing that question today, unlike the political branches and the public at large, we cannot afford to fixate exclusively or even primarily on present circumstances. That's the part that just at least gives me some hope, is they're trying to say, listen, we cannot focus on the current status of these two that we're talking about now, as much as everybody wants to get one of them, right? And yes, it might be a win for President Trump, but I think in when you really dig into this, they're doing the right thing with this 6-3 opinion and saying, listen, let's think about this slowly. It's going to run through the course of all the courts again as to what the definition of official, non-official, and it'll work itself out over time.
Because you're going to have, when Republicans take control, and you have a lot of Republicans who want vengeance.
And they're going to want it in a heartbeat.
I think Trump wants vengeance too. He said he wants vengeance. And so do they start prosecuting, or do they start telling the Justice Department, you need to prosecute the next president, and does it just go back and forth every time we have a change of office? So that's going to be really important to watch. Stay with us, listeners. We're going to be talking with State Senator Todd Weiler in the next segment about candidate Phil Lyman's comments post-election. Stay with us.
When you're getting a new roof installed, you don't want to wonder, when are they going to be done? Or even worse, what are they doing up there? You'll never have to ask when you hire IWC Roofing, because their team of certified installers will be texting you pictures from the roof. You're going to know exactly what's going on and what you're getting for your money. And on most homes, they'll do the entire job in one day. In, out, cleaned up, and they'll even power wash your driveway just to say thank you. Now, you think you'd pay a premium for this level of service, but IWC does so many roofs. They get the material for less, and they pass the savings on to you. IWC is an Owens Corning certified platinum contractor. Of course, financing is available. Even better, their summer special, up to $2,000 off your quote. But you have to make the call. $2,000 off right now. Call IWC Roofing, 801-232-5690. That's 801-232-5690. Or go to IWCRoofingUtah.com.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 13 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, or other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 90 days from a station contest or event are not eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com.
No one knows the importance of a great assist more than Lowe's and Leo Messi. That's why we've teamed up to give MVP's Pro Rewards members 10 times the points when Messi makes an assist during CONMEBOL Copa America USA 2024. Activate this offer starting June 20th, so when Messi assists, you score. Shop the day after an assist to earn those extra points. Not an MVP's Pro Rewards member? Join today. Visit Lowe's.com/Messi for more details.
The best things in life, they come in twos. 2 scoops of ice cream, 2 tacos. And now for a limited time, get our best deal of the year. Buy any phone when you switch to Consumer Cellular and get 2 months of service free. That's right, the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage as Big Wireless, now with 2 months free. Proof the best things in life really do come in twos. Visit consumercellular.com or call 1-888-FREEDOM. Second and third month of monthly base service fee waived for new customers with the purchase of a phone and activation by July 31st, 2024. Taxes, fees, and third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Stop paying 5-star pricing for 3-star service. It's time for a change. Welcome to Beehive Plumbing's Premier Experience. With our Beehive Premier plan, you have access to our VIP phone number and website to ensure prompt and reliable plumbing service by an expert 5-star technician. Why Beehive? Our Premier package comes with an industry-leading warranty, giving you up to 10 years of coverage on both parts and labor. Yeah, that's right, 10-year warranty. Call Beehive Plumbing today or visit beehivepremier.com for expert experience every time.
Hi, it's Tori DeVito. In every family, small conversations can make a big impact. I grew up on tour with my parents. Kind of different, but we bonded over music just like other families do over sports, camping, or other interests. And we talked. Little everyday conversations from silly to serious that built a foundation over time. Honest conversations. Like when my dad shared his experiences as an alcoholic.
Your honesty about that part of your life gave me a sense of integrity that I wanted to uphold in my own life. And I was so grateful that you and Mom had become these sober, stable people who were always there for me.
I wanted you to know from someone who's been in recovery more than 30 years now that hard work is what creates success, not alcohol or other drugs, whether it's music or anything else. I said it a lot, and I'm glad you took it to heart.
Talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Hey everybody, it's Casey Scott, and I have a podcast called Project Recovery. I talk about my own journey from addiction to a lifelong one in recovery. I'm joined by my good friend and a clinical psychologist, Dr. Matt Woolley.
You know, it's your story, Casey, but we also hear inspiring stories of others who join the show from rock bottom to living a life of recovery.
That's Project Recovery, a show about addiction, but more importantly, it's about recovery. Follow us for free on kslpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Utah's Lieutenant Governor telling county clerks to turn down grandma requests from Phil Lyman's campaign. Second, 2 astronauts have been unable to leave the International Space Station because of problems with the Boeing Starliner capsule, but the company doesn't want to use the word stranded. And third, the man accused of killing a Santa Quin police officer will get a private attorney, not a public defender. 82 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today in for Boyd Matheson, Rusty Cannon, and Adam Gardner. Adam, we're talking about some interesting stuff so far, and we are going to keep talking about politics in this segment and some of the races that have ended. We do have the one Congressional District 2 that is a bit more down to the wire and still percolating, as I'd say. But the governor's race, as you know, Adam, at this point today, Governor Cox leads by a 9-point margin, about, I think, 38,000 votes, right? This one.
And in Utah, that's really significant.
That is significant, right? In any race around the country, anywhere, the race is over. This is not a statistically close race. However, We do have a candidate, Phil Lyman, that is continuing to make some claims. And joining with us on the show is State Senator Todd Weiler, who's been following this closely. Senator Weiler, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you both.
So tell the listeners about what's been said. I know there's a lot that has been said and some of the claims that are being made. I think everyone will find this interesting.
Well, it's kind of hard to keep up, but I over the weekend I had some free time on my hands, so I listened to Phil Lyman's 34-minute kind of rant in response to the governor's victory speech. I happened to be sitting about 2 feet away from the governor during his victory speech, just because I was at his victory celebration. And so I took some notes, and I just started doing some checking. And so a couple of things. I don't want to speak for Phil, but he said he was really upset that the AP called the race like 23 minutes after the polls closed. And I was on another Zoom call with where he spoke for an hour on Monday, and he repeated that several times. And, this is not uncommon. This is not uncommon because we have exit polling and we have statistical data. And the interesting thing is even though the AP called the race for Governor Cox 23 minutes after the polls closed, we are now 8 days after the polls closed, and it's still very clear that Governor Cox won, as you guys just mentioned. In fact, he's up by about 40,000 votes. But then candidate Lyman kind of started throwing stuff out there, and he said it was such an anomaly that Sandy City had a power outage, he said, for 4.5 hours on Election Day. And he said, even though San Juan County, where he lives, has an inferior power grid, that would never happen there. And he alluded to the fact that maybe that, was intended to affect the outcome of the election. And so I happened to click on the publicly available voter data, and Sandy City has 91 precincts, and Phil Lyman only won 6 of them. And if you take all 6 of those precincts that he won those by a combined 55 votes. And the other, precincts, the governor won, and by thousands. I mean, collectively by thousands and thousands of votes. So if there was some inference, which I thought there was, that maybe the power outage in Sandy was designed to help Governor Cox, a power outage in Sandy ostensibly would have hurt Governor Cox because he won Sandy by a large margin. But furthermore, everyone was mailed a ballot, and so even if they were going to their polls on Election Day, most people just bring their ballot and put it in the drop box, and you don't need electricity to do that. And so I don't doubt that there were some people that were there to vote in person that didn't have a mailed-in ballot or lost their mailed-in ballot, and maybe they were said, hey, you got to go 2 miles down the road and vote there. But, the polls are open for, I think, 13 hours, and so even a 4.5-hour power outage, I didn't understand how that would, interfere with the election per se. And then he also mentioned that Utah County's turnout was historically low. He said 16%. Now, he was saying this a week ago, so I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. He only had the data that was available at that time. But as of Friday night, and I was doing this over the weekend, Utah County's, they had, and he had mentioned specifically that Utah County's voter turnout was lower in 2024 for the primary than it was in 2022 when Mike Lee defeated Becky Edwards. So I started looking at that numbers, and we've had more votes counted since then. But even as of Friday night, they actually had more votes counted in Utah County than in 2022, which you would kind of expect this year. But furthermore, Utah County was won by Spencer Cox. Now, it wasn't a high margin. It was about 51.5%. But again, if the vote had been suppressed in Utah County, that would have actually hurt the governor more than it would have hurt Lyman, because the governor was getting slightly more votes there. And furthermore, the other difference between 2022 and 2024, which he didn't mention, is in 2024, the new county clerk in Utah County, Aaron Davidson, he sent out the ballots and with a indication that you had to add your own stamp. And in 2022, it said that no stamp was required. So I imagine that there were probably at least hundreds of people, if not thousands, who filled out their ballot and said, oh, shoot, I don't have a stamp. I'll set this aside and maybe I'll get a stamp later. And those ballots are often never returned because you forget or you don't have the stamp and things like that. So, again, kind of an inference there that there was something wrong with the election because Utah County was so low. And then he also mentioned that he believed that, he stated as a fact that 30% of the registered Republicans in Salt Lake County were actually Democrats. So there's no basis for that. Ronald Reagan was a Democrat and then switched to be a Republican and ran, for president and won. And so people do switch parties. But he's saying that they're kind of, wolves in sheep clothing. They're true, in their heart Democrats, but they're registered as Republicans. So there's no data point. There's no factual basis for that. And I don't doubt, Rusty, for a moment that there are some in their heart Democrats who've registered as a Republican so they can vote in the primary. I've talked to a few of those people, but I would be shocked if it's tens of thousands of people like he's suggesting.
I would be shocked if it were 1,000.
Yeah, it's got to be even less than that.
I would be shocked if it were 3% of Salt Lake County, much less 30%. But I don't know, and he doesn't either, and that's the point. But I just ran the numbers, and if you took out 30% of Spencer Cox's votes in Salt Lake County, Spencer Cox still easily wins the election. And I could go on and on and on, but there's just no there there. And remember, Phil Lyman was one of the two legislators 3 years ago with Steve Christensen at the time who was trying to get access to the voter rolls, and there are security risks with that. And now, now 3 years later, he's still trying to get access to the voter rolls, even the voter databases of the voters who have asked for their records to be kept private. And he's saying unless he can get that there's no transparency and there's no accountability. And this is like the My Pillow guy. He's the one telling people, you got to go get your voter rolls. And this was part of the Arizona audit. So this is kind of the election conspiracy stuff that we've all been hearing about. Now, Phil will stand up and say, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I also was on a Zoom call on Monday evening where he answered a question and said that he believes that the voter machines, if you vote in person, that they can change your vote after you cast your vote. So this is the election conspiracy stuff that we've all been hearing about for the last 4 years since the 2020 election. And number one, I don't believe it. I think our independently elected county clerks, 28 out of the 29, by the way, are Republicans. I don't think they're throwing the elections. I don't think they're committing felonies to get their preferred candidates. And number two, there's just no evidence of this other than conspiracy theories. And number three, having worked with Phil Lyman and liked him in the legislature, I'm just so disappointed that someone of his caliber and of his stature would make these baseless allegations and just try to undermine the trust of the Utah voters in our election systems. Are our election systems perfect? No. We still have missionary moms signing the names of their elders, on their ballots, which is illegal. There's never going to be a perfect election in our country, but we're talking about less than 0.1% anomalies. So I'm not one of these people that thinks our elections are perfect, but there is no widespread evidence of fraud or corruption, which is what his campaign seems to be promulgating. And I'm just so disappointed as a fellow elected official that one of my colleagues would try to undermine the public's trust this way.
Well, Senator, thank you for joining the show and explaining that. I don't know if many were aware of this, but boy, let's just hope that maybe this works itself out and cooler heads can prevail and everybody can make the right decision. So he had mentioned as well corruption. And Adam, we hope everybody stays with us to the top of the hour. We're going to talk about a corruption case with a United States Senator that not a lot of people are talking about that definitely we should be. Stick right with us.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, we're counting down 21 days until the historic announcement, Salt Lake City 2034.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. The man accused of killing a Santaquin police officer has been assigned a new lawyer. Michael Jane is potentially facing the death penalty in this case. He appeared in court yesterday and was assigned a private lawyer instead of the one from the county's public defender's office. KSL legal analyst Greg Skorda says this isn't totally unusual.
There are a group of attorneys who are what we call death qualified in Utah. And we are attorneys that have tried a certain number of homicide cases, have had training in death penalty cases, and can be court appointed on capital offenses.
Skorda says this doesn't mean Jane is getting any special treatment, as he would have been represented by qualified attorneys from the public defender's office without this. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. There's now a fourth person in the United States with a confirmed case of bird flu, a dairy worker in Colorado. All the cases so far have been dairy workers on farms where cows have tested positive. This person had eye symptoms and got antiviral medication. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down 23 points on the day, while the NASDAQ up 159 points. And our KSL weather. You couldn't ask for a prettier day for the pancake breakfasts and parades for the 4th of July. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Eric was way behind on his taxes.
I owed a lot of money to the IRS, almost $15,000. I tried to make payments.
The IRS wasn't satisfied with Eric's efforts, so they came after him full force.
They're coming to put a lien and a hold on all my income, my home, my car. I was just overwhelmed at what to do.
Then Eric called Optima Tax Relief.
When Optima Tax got involved, the calls would stop, the threats would stop. It was easy like 1, 2, 3.
Optima Tax Relief is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and their team of expert tax professionals took care of Eric's problem.
I owe $15,000, and now my debt is clean. I don't owe anything.
Take Eric's advice.
If you have a tax problem, you need to call Optima Tax now.
Call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Hey, have you saved more than $200,000 in an IRA or 401k? You may not realize it now, but you've got a big problem on your hands. And that problem is taxes. Because if you don't take advantage of some tax planning strategies now, Uncle Sam could take a big chunk of your hard-earned retirement savings. Learn how you could reduce the taxes on your IRA and 401k with a free retirement tax savings analysis. It's from Boss Retirement Solutions. If you've saved more than $200,000, schedule your free tax strategy session now by calling 801-896-9622. Discover the tax planning strategies that could dramatically reduce your taxes in retirement. Call 801-896-9622. That's 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
Jim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. I want to tell you about our famous "You Don't Need a Warranty" warranty. That's right. It's a warranty you don't need, but we give it to you anyway. Let me explain. Most warranty problems for siding, gutters, and windows are caused by not installing stuff right in the first place. If you rush the work, cut corners, or use subpar materials, you're just begging for problems later. At RGS Exteriors, we don't tolerate careless workmanship. We slow down, focus on every detail, and use only the best materials. We prevent warranty work by doing the job right in the first place. That's why the 10-year everything guarantee we give you is also known as our "You Don't Need a Warranty" warranty. We absolutely will be there if you need to use it. But honestly, you probably will never have to. Done right the first time. That's the RGS way. For siding, gutters, and windows, call 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsexteriors.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have had crews that are still on the scene of a crash with injuries, a rollover in Sandy. They are blocking different lanes of traffic in multiple directions at the intersection of 9400 South and 1300 East. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny and 88 today. Sunshine again on the 4th of July with a high of 86. And a warming trend starts Friday and reaches 100 degrees early next week. 82 degrees and sunny right now. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson.
On Utah's home for elevated conversation.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to the second hour of Inside Sources, and filling in for Boyd Matheson, I'm Adam Gardner here with Rusty Cannon. We are really excited about this next segment. We've been wanting to talk about this for a while now, and it seems to have left the news over the last year. But the case involves Senator Bob Menendez from New Jersey, so you can guess that this came from New Jersey, I think.
No surprise.
From New Jersey. This guy has been indicted before.
Yeah, this is the second time.
This is his second indictment, but before he was found not guilty, and so he's been staying in the Senate. This one, I don't know how on earth he's going to be found not guilty because the evidence is pretty overwhelming, and we kind of want to set the scene. Just as a high level, Senator Bob Menendez is the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee.
Yes, that's a key piece of this.
This deals with all of your foreign policy in the Senate. This is the group that will hear hearings from all of the nominees to be ambassador, secretary of state. They have a lot of influence over foreign policy. In Utah, we have Senator Mitt Romney. He serves on that committee, and he is the chairman of a subcommittee over China. And so they, and counterterrorism and all these other things. So they have a lot of influence in this area. The allegations here against Senator Menendez are there is a group of 3 businessmen in New Jersey or New York, I think it was New Jersey, that are literally paying him cash and gold bars and employing his wife and giving them a Mercedes, all in exchange for Senator Menendez using his position as the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee to protect their company and their investments and work on behalf of the government of Egypt. That is being an unregistered foreign agent. I don't know how this doesn't borderline. I hesitate to use the word treason because I'm not a legal scholar, but my gosh, he is giving secrets of the United States, non-public documents, and handing them over to the Egyptian government.
Yeah, so let's set the stage a little bit further. As prosecutors rolled out the case, and this happened over the last several weeks. Maybe everybody didn't know this, but let me ask you this, Adam. Just like everybody else, I'm sure you keep duffel bags full of cash in your basement.
Well, actually, what I do is I only use like a debit and a credit card, but then I keep gold bars in my underwear.
Okay, Okay, so they found over $480,000 of cash in his home, stuffed into duffel bags, shoes, boxes, all in his home.
Jackets.
Yeah.
They stuffed it
in his Senate jacket pockets.
You can see this in the pictures on the Department of Justice's website where they had stuffed bundles of cash into jacket and coat pockets and hung it up, to hide it.
Yeah.
And they were his United States Senate labeled jackets.
Yes. You wonder how somebody gets to this point and then tries to explain this away. They also, as you mentioned, gold bars. I don't believe they're in his underwear, but
$100,000 worth of gold bars.
It was that much?
In the house.
Okay, so all in the home. And this was a raid that the FBI did 2 years ago in 2022. And so he is now being charged, as you mentioned, bribery, extortion, wire fraud, obstruction of justice, and acting as a foreign agent for Egypt. You would expect these type of headlines to be whirled around with some other current candidates right now, but you just don't hear about this. And it's been interesting how there's been almost silence. And we have a sitting U.S. Senator has not been asked to resign. I don't know if he's running for re-election. He might have filed as an independent. I think the deadline is passed to run as a Democrat, but he's
going to run. He filed to run as an independent.
Okay, for Senate because he's up again this year, I believe.
And Rusty, I'll say this. I went back and looked at some of the statements from Democratic leaders, from Schumer and Durbin and others, and they said that they wanted him to resign. And they said it in a statement. I don't know if anyone said it on the floor, but yes, we think he should resign. That's it. There has been no pressure, no nothing. The only one on their side has been that has really, on the Democratic side, been calling for his resignation was the senator, and you'll have to help me with his name. I'm blanking. From Pennsylvania.
Blanking as well.
He wears we all know who he is. He wears a hoodie.
Fetterman.
Fetterman.
Yeah.
So Fetterman has been the only one that has been adamant that he leave.
Yeah.
So every time
good for
Bob
Fetterman.
Menendez posts on X, he will repost that and say, "You need to resign. You're a terrible human being." I mean, he's going after him. And I look at it's kind of interesting because in the Senate side, we only have like a 1-vote differential.
Yeah.
And so they're like, we don't want to give it up. But it's New Jersey. You're going to appoint another Democrat.
It would be another Democrat.
So who
for sure.
cares?
Yeah.
Then you look at the House, and I'm just comparing. This is not apples to apples either. You have a sleazeball in George Santos from New York. The guy is terrible, and everybody recognizes it in the House.
Mm-hmm.
And they held a vote because after an ethics investigation, they voted to kick him out of the House.
Yeah, I remember.
So he left in disgrace, and they cannot fill that seat with a Republican.
No.
They have to go to another election, and a Democrat's probably going to win. And on the Senate side, where you have a safe seat, no one is calling on this guy to, no one is actually forcing this guy to resign. There's no ethics investigation by the United States Senate.
I was going to ask, there's no ethics how come?
I've read multiple articles, and every article, these are a year old, that say, here's why an ethics investigation is unlikely to happen. And they're just nonsense because it's Chuck Schumer leading it. And I'm not saying this is just because they're Democrats. Republicans have their bad apples as well, and we've proven that on the House side. Yeah. But how can you not do an ethics investigation into this guy? This is his second offense. Yeah. This one's much more egregious. These guys were giving a job to his wife.
Yeah,
they were paying his wife for a job they didn't have to show up for. She got in an accident in that Mercedes. She hit somebody. And then she called up those 3 businessmen and wanted a new car.
Oh, you got to be kidding.
This is this is what we're dealing with here. And it's just, I wish there was a stronger stance taken by Republicans even. I want to hear them beat this drum every single day in the Senate.
They should be.
Why aren't they doing that?
This should be headline news, and it's not. And that's what's crazy. So even harder to believe is the defense for the reason for having $486,000 in cash in your house is that his father taught him to not trust the banks.
Well, because my father was a Cuban immigrant.
Yeah.
He didn't like banks.
I mean,
so we always have to have cash around.
Yeah. I mean, just that nobody believes this. I don't understand how that would be a decent defense. Now, they do have their chance, and they're rolling out their defense this week. That was some of the news stories more recently, is they're bringing out, family members and things to talk about what an upstanding character this senator is. But I don't see how the defense gets around this time. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Look, there are criminals, there are money launderers, there are people that get caught up into these schemes, and they help businessmen, and they okay, whatever. These things happen a lot. What I think, and I can even forgive that. He serves his time, he's done. What I think is unforgivable is him basically selling secrets and working on behalf of the government of Egypt to protect his friends.
Yeah.
That, as a United States senator, as a representative of our country, and I'm just thinking about this on the 4th of July and what everyone went through, and it just ticks me off that this guy is just betraying the United States of America, and he's doing it openly, and his best response is to shut his mouth, and because he does that, nobody else talks. Nobody else talks about it. It's out of the news.
Well, and it gets to a bigger question, which we don't have time to discuss, but with any elected official in powers, what does this do to them over time? And how careful you have to be about ethics and about holding their feet to the fire and having transparency. It can really, really get dicey if not. And I think this is a perfect example of how this, unfortunately, still happens.
And this isn't going to be the last time that we talk about this on KSL News Radio. There's going to be more as this case it goes forward, and so we're going to be following that. Listeners, stay with us. We're going to be talking with Lindsay Ertz and the plans to revitalize Salt Lake City's downtown. Stay with us.
Hey, you there with a sparkler or that 500-gram Ariel? Keep a water hose nearby, and for heaven's sake, don't light them out of bounds. And bonus points if you lay off after midnight. We all love fireworks, but we love safe homes and a good night's sleep. A reminder from your friends at KSL News Radio.
Do you have your sewer main line routered once a year to maintain it? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and you're not really supposed to have to do that. I was talking to Matt Hansen, who oversees the drains department at Any Hour Services. He says if a homeowner's clearing their main line on a regular basis, it's usually an indication of a bigger problem. Roots, cracks, bellies, offsets, it's just a matter of time before it fails. Unfortunately, people usually wait until there's a major backup to inspect their sewer line. By then, you end up with flooding, not to mention the inconvenience of taking time off, replacing carpet. It's a mess. I think the main reason people put it off, though, is because it can cost a couple $100 to have your sewer line inspected. For a limited time, this sewer camera inspection is 50% off if you call Any Hour Services and mention this ad. That way, you can actually see what's causing the problem and decide if you want to fix it or just keep rootering it. Call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
If you had your own personal nutritionist, what would you ask her? Maybe you'd ask her, look, you got to find a way for me to have sugar because without sugar, I don't want to live. Or maybe you'd say, I want to cook better so that my children have better eating habits and don't struggle with their weight the way I have my whole life. I bring this up because if you go to SOTA Weight Loss, SOTA weightloss.com, there's a button right there you can click on. It says, request a nutritionist callback, and she'll call you right back.
Yeah, and what you find out is that idea that you may have to lose out on sugar is unfounded because there's a lot of other great products on the market that you're going to love.
They're sweet.
That don't have that crazy high content of sugar. My daughter lost 42 pounds on this program, and they can help you too. Their goal is to make sure you keep that weight off so that relationship goes on even after you've reached your goal weight for as long as it takes in the maintenance phase. Find out more. Go to SOTAweightloss.com, spelled SOTA.
And click on that button that says request a nutritionist callback.
It stands for state of the
art.
Why'd the kid jump off the boat?
I don't know. Why?
Peer pressure.
Oh. Good one, Ned.
Ned isn't funny, but Ned owns a boat, and you don't. So every time Ned tells another one of his unfunny boat puns, you're going to laugh loud and keep on laughing until you get a boat of your own.
A pier where you put a boat.
Yeah, I get it.
And when you do get a boat of your own, make sure you save money by bundling it with your home, auto, or other vehicles with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Dead battery on America's birthday? America's #1 battery destination is here to help. AutoZone has free battery testing and charging at every store, and batteries starting at just $79.99. With our 4th of July sale, we have savings to help you red, white, and do any other jobs you've been putting off. It's everything you need to get back on the road at AutoZone.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
It's 1st and goal at the 10-yard line with seconds left on the clock. Your running back is poised for a game-winning touchdown, but before you can make the snap, the opposing team just takes the ball and locks it inside a safe? Then they won't give you the combination unless you pay them $10,000? That's how ransomware works. And in 2021, 2 out of every 3 organizations fell victim to ransomware attacks. Protect your business with the Les Olson Security Suite from Les Olson IT. Learn more at lesolson.com.
Summer is upon us, and you know what your lawn wants? It wants Revive Organic Soil Treatment upon it. A Revive treatment with fertilization, aeration, and good watering is the key to building stronger roots for a healthy, lush green lawn all summer. Revive fertilizes and moves water and nutrients deeper into the soil. You'll see the difference. Revive is surefire defense against summer drought and skyrocketing water costs. Make the most of your watering with Revive Organic Soil Treatment. Apply Revive Organic Soil Treatment today. It works.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a court in Utah County is appointing a private attorney to represent the man accused of killing a Santaquin police officer. Second, a 4th human bird flu case has turned up in Colorado. Like all the others, it was a worker on a dairy farm. And third, we're hearing more talk every day about President Biden possibly ending his candidacy for re-election. 84 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm your co-host, Rusty Cannon. I'm here with Adam Gardner today. And Adam, now we're going to talk about all that's going on in Salt Lake City's downtown. A lot of news lately. And this week, we have had some great coverage by Lindsay Ertz with KSL, and she's joining us here in studio to talk about what's going on with downtown Salt Lake. Lindsay,
Guys,
thanks for joining us.
I miss radio. It feels so good to be here.
Well, we're
Thanks
glad
for
to have
having
you.
me. Yeah.
So there's been more news this week on, well, I mistakenly call it the hockey bill, but
Sure.
because from left over from the legislative session. But
Yep.
this is now on the the downtown revitalization zone. I
We
believe
do
is the
need
proper
need a better name, but that's essentially what we're trying to do is revitalize downtown and redo the Delta Center at the same time.
So what happened this week? There's been a lot going on. I believe there was a city council meeting yesterday.
Yeah, so basically what we got yesterday was the high level and draft proposal of the executive summary of the terms between Smith Entertainment Group and Salt Lake City, basically how the tax money, not necessarily how it's going to break down, but kind of the split between what goes to the Delta Center, what goes to the rest of the zone. We also saw in writing for the first time kind of what Smith Entertainment Group has committed to in terms of what we call public benefits. Basically, that just says you're getting tax money in order to help this, there needs to be some public benefit for it, right? That's kind of the argument there is it worth it, right? And so what we see now is kind of on paper what those public benefits will be and what they've committed to and what they've agreed to through negotiations with Salt Lake City.
Okay, what do they look like? What does the public benefit look like?
So there's a host of things. First of all, there's a home game commitment provision in there, which just means the Jazz and the new hockey team have to play their home games in the Delta Center, right? So that ensures that the team doesn't go south. There is also a ticket fee included in there, $1 to $3 of every Delta Center ticket. So not just hockey and basketball, but concerts, events, presumably Disney on Ice, anything that happens at the Delta Center, would kick back into a fund for Salt Lake City. And that fund would be used for family housing, affordable housing, things that the city sees it's benefit it, right? So that was kind of a major and new provision that we hadn't heard of before, kind of a way to get at this affordable housing piece without necessarily just kicking over this amount of money towards it, right? And that may come in the future. I'm actually working on a story on that today, by the way. So those two pieces. SEG is also committed to a bunch of workforce development conditions, things like apprenticeships and internships and youth hockey and basketball programs, speaking engagements, college internships, the way they can kind of benefit the community in that regard. We also have, they've agreed to free and subsidized tickets for certain groups, focusing on some of those who are lower income. Gathering spaces they've agreed to in terms of creating sort of that public benefit, right?
Are we talking outside the Delta Center?
No, in the zone. So, yeah. So we're talking about the Delta Center and the 2 blocks east. And so those 2 blocks east will include gathering spaces, right? You think of like Japantown where they could perhaps hold a festival in that area, right? There are stipulations in this contract for how many festivals a year can use this space kind of thing. So there are some specifics, there. But essentially, they create these gathering spaces, right, where we can sort of have this community asset, if you will, in this zone. And then Japantown was one of those inclusions in this. Smith Entertainment Group has agreed to kind of revitalize what once was a thriving Japantown community. There's some stipulations there too, making sure certain streets, the loading docks aren't there as much anymore, right? That we're creating space between the buildings and the Church of Christ. So stipulations around Japantown. And then security and public art are also part of the things that Smith Entertainment Group has agreed to. So what we're kind of seeing here is the things that Smith Entertainment Group has agreed to in exchange for the public money. That's the highest level way I can explain what we learned yesterday.
So one other thing that was new, the user fee, I would call it. That's something that, as far as just full disclosure, and the president of the Taxpayers Association, we were asked to weigh in on this. We are neutral on this whole proposal and have been from the beginning.
I saw your eyes perk up when I mentioned that.
Yeah,
it's a user fee.
That is what we would hope the conversation gets more towards. Meaning, if you use the area, use the stadium, you help pay for the stadium. If you don't, you don't.
Right.
And that's the beauty about user fees. And so it's good to hear that kind of going down that road a little bit as far as the ticket fee that they announced. It looks like they also talked about, we knew this before, but there's that cap of the $900 million over the 30 years that 0.5% would be able to generate, and now kind of where that money is going to go.
Yeah, and so we know that $525 million of that will go towards stadium renovations, roughly. These are estimates, and then another $375 goes towards the other 2 blocks in the zone.
Now, and I don't know if this was part of the conversation yesterday, but we have been told that the Smith Entertainment Group will be spending $3 billion of their own money on this.
Yeah,
right? So
and
that's part of the context.
Yeah, exactly. So they are investing some of their own money, but we don't know exactly where that money goes. And I have asked the Smith Entertainment Group's principal on this, Mike Mon, this question before: where does your money go? And I think it's just too early to know those conversations, right?
But that's what they're willing to commit.
Right, exactly. And so whether that goes to creating a plaza space, whether that goes to housing, whether it goes to, if they lease the Salt Palace, does it go to that? Like, it just is too early to know, like, the accounting of it, if you will. But there are also mechanisms in this contract for accounting that a liaison has to report back to the city council and the city in terms of what it spends its money on and what it asks for.
Okay, so let me ask you this. The legislature put some deadlines on the Salt Lake City Council.
Mhm.
It was kind of ingenious by the legislature. They just pushed
Was
it
it?
off.
Was it, though?
They didn't have to deal with it.
Because that's the biggest pushback I'm hearing out there is this deadline, this imposed deadline, self-imposed deadline that we all have to operate under now.
And so they pushed it off to the Salt Lake City Council. And so it really becomes SEG, Smith Entertainment Group, having to negotiate with the Salt Lake City Council, which in my opinion, for something like this is sometimes harder than dealing with the legislative process.
Well, they're negotiating with the city, so the mayor's office, and then the mayor's bringing this to the council and saying,
Right,
here's
that's
the
a great
proposal. Yeah, here's the proposal. Do you want to approve the sales tax? So it's the two branches of government, right, having those conversations.
And what are the deadlines like? Are they going to meet those deadlines?
Yeah, so there's a September 1st deadline for this participation agreement. So basically, this contract that we're talking about, what we saw yesterday, the summary of it, is this contract between Smith Entertainment Group and the city. That has to be approved by September 1st. Now, what has to happen before then is you have to kick it over. If it's approved by Salt Lake City, which we anticipate a meeting to discuss it and vote on whether to approve it next Tuesday, so the 9th. And then if that happens, it gets kicked over to a legislative committee who has 30 days to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. They can come back with comment and say, we give it a thumbs down because X, Y, and Z. And then the city and Smith can go back to negotiate and fix those things that maybe don't make some folks happy. Once that is given a thumbs up or a thumbs down, let's just assume it's all going to get a thumbs up.
It will.
Yeah, then...
I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm just saying... Anybody that is thinking that this isn't fairly baked at this point, I think is mistaken, in my opinion, right? I think Salt Lake City never has a problem raising taxes, first of all. That should come as no surprise to everybody.
Shots fired.
Yeah, but I will say that all the time. But this is obviously a different issue and a different cause, and we can talk about that. But, the train is leaving the station, it seems, and it's just, they're checking some boxes to make sure it's done properly and out in the open. Right?
Yeah, so to just finish the timeline question, though, presumably in August is the next city council meeting. After that participation agreement, the contract gets approved by that legislative committee, then they would take a vote on the tax increase, presumably happening in August.
Yeah.
So they have until the end of the year, but we think that's going to happen at the end of the
So the law stipulates that they have until the end of the year to raise the sales tax, potentially. But the question is, how long does it take for the Utah State Tax Commission to implement and start collecting a new tax come January 1 of 25, right?
Yeah.
It's my understanding that takes 90 days.
Yeah, they need time to update the publications that gets out to those that collect the sales tax. You have to change systems. I mean, it's not complicated rocket science, but but there is some logistics that need to take place. So the time's ticking. They need to get this taken care of pretty soon.
Yeah, and so that's been kind of the behind the scenes conversations of like, well, do we have to December 1st or do we have till September 1st? Like, it's my understanding the lawmakers put the September 1st deadline because they knew about that 90 days for the tax commission to operate. So if September 1st were done on the Salt Lake City side, we kick it over to the legislature. That's October 1st for their 30 days to review it. And then we have those 90 days till the end of the year to approve that or not.
Well, thank you, Lindsay. This has been very helpful.
Hopefully I made it more clear and not more confusing.
It is clear. Yes. Thank you for joining us. Very good information. And next, we're going to talk about another Supreme Court decision having to do with the EPA. And this one means a lot to Utah. Adam and I are going to talk about it next.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. Crews have found the body of a 29-year-old woman who drowned while kayaking at Little Dell Reservoir yesterday. Salt Lake County Sheriff Rosie Rivera says this is the second body recovered by their search and rescue teams in just a matter of days, and they want people to be extra careful during the holiday.
Just take every precaution that you can when you're in our canyons, when you're out on the water, have your safety equipment, and make sure that somebody knows where you're at.
Rivera says they don't know yet what caused Haley Mason to go under the water. He was at the reservoir by herself, not clear whether she was wearing a life jacket. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Biden is telling his campaign staff he's in the 2024 race to the end. He's working to calm concerns about his debate performance last week. According to a source familiar, the president and vice president called an all-staff meeting to give the pep talk. And at the White House, Chief of Staff Jeff Zients also held a call with staff, encouraging them to come together as a team. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average is down on the day, but just by 23 points. The NASDAQ is up 159, and the S&P 500 closed trading up 28 points today. And our weather is just going to be fabulous. That's next. KSL News Time 2:32.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
In 2024, dating is a disaster. We've been ghosted, breadcrumbed, stuck in situationships. Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm Caitlin. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age.
Have you ever been on a coffee date with a man who just got sprung from prison?
Dating has been so dicey for us, so we asked KSL, can we launch an all-new podcast about it?
You're not really dating when you're on the dating app.
Dating at Her Age. Brought to you by Mountain Home Services. A new episode drops every Thursday on KSLNewsRadio.com.
How many of you have been waiting months or even years to get a crown, but don't have $1,200 to $1,500 to get one? Only Crowns offers same-day crowns at a fraction of the cost of your dentist. Plus, you're in and out in under 90 minutes. Save your money and save your time with Only Crowns. They provide an unmatched lifetime warranty. No dental insurance? No problem. Don't let the price of a crown keep you from enjoying good dental health. Only Crowns is here, and there's nothing like it anywhere in Utah. Done fast, done right, just $6.99 per tooth. They'll offer a limited exam, all the x-rays needed, plus a full zirconia crown with a lifetime warranty and no hidden fees. No one else offers that, and it's yours with Only Crowns. Visit Only Crowns next to Shields and Sandy or online at onlycrowns.com and get details, including how to score a Stanley mug for the first 100 appointments, along with a chance to win an electric bike. No purchase necessary. Onlycrowns.com. That's onlycrowns.com.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. In October of 1985, a woman named Cherie Warren left work at a busy Salt Lake City office
to meet her estranged husband at a downtown auto dealership.
She never made it home. Cherie's car surfaced weeks later in Las Vegas.
In the parking lot of a hotel casino.
No one knows how it got there.
Strange. It was strange.
Both Cherie's estranged husband and her boyfriend raised suspicion for investigators.
I kind of thought that he might have done something.
But no arrests were ever made. In Cold Season 3, we dig into double lives, make new connections in the case, and examine the difficulty raised by reasonable doubt.
We want answers just as much as anyone else.
They have creeps like that now too, so nothing's changed.
That's the new Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, now available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have a KSL traffic trooper alerting us to a crash in Tooele County southbound Main Street, SR 36, prior to 1280 North. Another traffic trooper giving us a heads up about a crash or a fire near Spanish Fork. We're trying to see if we can find smoke in that area now. Doesn't seem to be affecting traffic on Highway 6 or I-15, but we do have heavy and slow traffic on northbound and southbound I-15 between 53rd and 7200 South. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny and 88 today. Sunshine again on the 4th of July with a high of 86. A warming trend starts Friday, reaches 100 degrees early next week. And right now, 82 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back, everybody, to Inside Sources. I'm Adam Gardner here with Rusty Cannon, and we are filling in for Boyd. We're going to get into another Supreme Court case. This one's called the EPA. It's better known as the EPA's Good Neighbor rule.
It sounds so nice.
It's very friendly.
Yes.
The Environmental Protection Agency is always looking out for us and names things.
Let's please be good neighbors.
To be so pleasant.
Yes.
We know in Utah, a lot of folks are saying that that's not the case.
Nope.
That this doesn't have anything to do with being good neighbors. It is a way for the EPA to go around Congress and to regulate states individually. Outside of the normal process of congressional legislation.
Yeah, gets back to the Chevron doctrine, right?
It goes back to the We are the experts, and we are saying that, hey, Utah, your air that we don't like is blowing into Colorado, and for that we're going to penalize you. So in the next 5 years, you have to get your emissions down, and you have to close down a power plant, and you have to close down a coal mine. And so they kind of can set these pretty egregious regulations. So the Supreme Court just ruled that the EPA has to halt all of that. But Utah's specific case was resolved about a year ago in the 10th Circuit. And we have an expert on this subject, Gordon Larson with Governor Cox's office. He handles federal policy, and this is right in his wheelhouse. Gordon, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Hey, could you give us a little bit of background and set the stage for us on what the EPA's Good Neighbor rule is and how it affects Utah?
Sure, and you did a good job describing the basics, Adam. It's an effort on the surface to prevent the emissions, the ozone emissions from upwind states from affecting the air quality in downwind states. But as you said, we feel like it's a misinterpretation, a willful misinterpretation of the authority that EPA has been granted by Congress under the Clean Air Act. And what it really is just sort of a cynical part, one of the many efforts, cynical efforts by the Biden administration to shut down coal-fired generation and to do it prematurely in a way that would create a lot of energy reliability issues for Utah and for other states in the West. As you noted, we were saved last summer by a stay that the 10th Circuit Court granted Utah and other states that had sued, and then they kind of finished off the other states that had been concerned about this as well last week in their decision. So. It's not over yet, but the court recognized the arguments that we made about the problems with the EPA's rule and have paused it for now.
So, Gordon, will this next ruling really change the game for Utah, or is this more changing the game for the rest of the country to be brought in line with where Utah was at?
Yeah, the case that we had made early on, and I should mention Governor Cox and Governor Gordon from Wyoming and Governor Little from Idaho sent a letter back in the fall of 2022 laying out our concerns, both sort of the impact this would have on energy reliability, but also just their modeling was bad. They were using kind of an East Coast model for looking at emissions and not looking at the unique topography and meteorology in the West that has an impact on emissions. But they're also not sort of looking at the fact that Utah has dramatically over the last several years, dramatically reduced our emissions, even as our population has grown. And I can offer numbers on that if it's helpful. But we just think it was a flawed rule from beginning to end. And so the impact last week of the case was really just on I think it was Ohio, West Virginia, and one other state I'm forgetting that had filed the suit there. So this will have an impact on about 11 eastern states, but they had already recognized that. And that was, frankly, Rusty, that was part of the challenge. It was sort of like, well, so if you're nationwide trying to reduce this downwind impact of ozone emissions, and a huge majority of those emissions are coming from a handful of states that are now exempt, how is that going to work, and does that make any sense, and is that consistent with the intent of the Clean Air Act? So we're glad to be in the spot we are now, and glad that they kind of put an exclamation point this last week on that decision for those other states.
Hey, Gordon, you mentioned that you have some numbers to provide. Year after year, we hear from the public and we hear sometimes from the news media that, our air is bad. And look, our air is bad. Anyone who's here in the winter and sees the inversions knows that the air is bad, and it is. But the legislature and the state have made a lot of really good strides in reducing the problem with our air quality. Could you give us some of those numbers and what it looks like and how we've made some of those strides for cleaner air?
Yeah, and totally agree. I mean, there's a lot of work remains to be done, and but I think we can be proud of the work the legislature and the governor and industry have done. I think Tier 3 fuels has made a huge impact and will continue to. So from 2002 to 2017, so that 15-year period, Utah's population grew by 34%. That's not a shocker to anybody. But during that same time, the total statewide air emissions have been reduced by 27%. So that's per capita.
Whoa.
That's a 45% reduction.
So it went in the other direction.
Yeah. And same thing, I mean, we have a lot of great industrial partners that have done the same thing. So large industries, they've reduced their emissions by 12% just between 2017 and 2019 alone. So that's 9,000 fewer tons of particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen, what we call the VOX, the volatile organic compounds, carbon dioxide. So huge strides are being made, and I think we should be proud of that and continue working on it.
Adam, to not deviate too far, but the Supreme Court, I love talking about the Supreme Court, not so much the decision, but you know how we always hear, it's, Supreme Court's changed and everybody wants to just put it back the way it was, those that are on a certain side of the aisle. All these decisions, 6-3, 6-3, 6-3. This was 5-4. And you saw Amy Coney Barrett actually siding with the other three justices that are typically on the other side. This was a 5-4 decision. It's not always 6-3.
It's not always 6-3. And a lot of times when it is 6-3, it's not split along ideological lines. So we're seeing that play out right now. Mm-hmm. Gordon, I want to ask you this. We had mentioned that Utah was getting in trouble for causing bad air in Colorado. But it seems to me that if that's really the case, and it goes over the Rocky Mountains, where is Utah's bad air coming from? Are we getting any respite, or was the EPA going to punish California or Nevada for causing bad air in Utah?
No, that's a great question. I think one of the kind of strange things that I think is always frustrating for us is that the Clean Air Act, which can levy these fines against polluters appropriately so, has no consequence for the bad forest management that leads to these catastrophic wildfires in coastal states that are the by far biggest contributor to bad emissions, bad air in our states. And there's a lot of people that kind of seem to think that these wildfires are just sort of the inevitable result of climate change or whatever other factors that are outside of our control, and there's really nothing we can do. The reality is it really comes down to good forest management policies. And if you were to look at areas of forests in Utah that the state manages and where we've done a good job sort of thinning out the forest, mechanically thinning and prescribed burns right next to national forests where they have not been able to do the same kinds of active thinning and management. It's a noticeable difference, and that bad forest management in California and Oregon and Washington, and that's not laying the blame on any single stakeholder there, but the Forest Service is a federal agency, and there just needs to be a lot more done to prevent those fires, which, again, they have a huge impact. California, I think, a couple summers ago when they had huge fires, that erased decades of work that they had done to reduce emissions just with a summer of really bad wildfires. So it's a huge issue that we need to pay attention to.
Gordon, I think you're spot on, and it's not like we had to guess where this was coming from. We actually saw it when we walked outside of our front doors. We saw the smoke and the fire from California and Oregon. So we're glad definitely. We're taking a look at that. That was Gordon Larson with the governor's office. We're grateful that he was able to join us. On our next segment, we're going to finish off looking forward to the 4th of July. Stay with us.
My wife and I always loved doing everything together. Jiu-jitsu, kayaking, and intimacy was always on point. It was around my early 30s when I noticed a downward trend. watching a lot of TV, putting on weight, and just full of self-doubt. I tried another men's clinic with disappointing results. It's the personalized treatment I receive at Revive Men's Health that has been the complete game changer for me. I've got my energy and motivation back, I'm feeling stronger than I did in my 20s, and it made me a much better husband to my wife.
I'm Eric Ramos, healthcare provider at Revive Men's Health. If you are always feeling tired or moody, have a difficult time sleeping, or decreased libido, you may be suffering from low testosterone.
Book your free T-check and exam at Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
The Salt Lake Chamber is Utah's voice for business. Okay, that sounds great, but what does it really mean? Well, as Utah's largest and longest-standing business association, they support and champion community prosperity throughout the state. And if you're in business, well, that's a very good thing for you. Be sure to listen to the Chamber's Speaking on Business, weekdays at 7:20, 11:55, and 5:20 p.m. on KSL News Radio.
A happy place comes in many colors. One that leaves you feeling refreshed. Something that gets you all fired up. Or gives you the space to chill. Whatever your color, bring happiness home with CertaPro Painters and make your happy place your home. CertaPro Painters. That's painting happy. Get started today at CertaPro.com. Each CertaPro Painters business is independently owned and operated. Contractor license and registration information is available at CertaPro.com.
Celebrate July 4th with savings at Lowe's. For a limited time, save on the essentials you need to make your garden pop for summer, like Miracle-Gro 25-quart potting mix. Get 2 bags for just $16. And get up to 40% off, plus save an extra $50 on every $500 you spend on select major appliances. Hurry, these deals won't last long, because Lowe's knows summer savings. Valid through 7/10. Miracle-Gro excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Appliance savings vary based on purchase amount. Exclusions apply. See Lowe's.com for more details while supplies last.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular's single line 1, 5, and 10 gig data plans with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans offered by T-Mobile and Verizon January 2024.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Our goal every day on Inside Sources is to help you divide the rage from the reason, elevate the conversation, connect the dots, and make the news make sense in your world. We have conversations with great thinkers, with great leaders, and great people who are just out there making a difference in the world. Now, we do talk about politics, but only so we can discuss society and culture. And then we explore society and culture so we can discuss principles and the people in America and the state of Utah who actually live them and apply them every day. We bring the best and brightest minds to the state of Utah, and we love to take the Utah model and send it out to our nation's capital and beyond. Every day on Inside Sources, you'll be part of that conversation. To help you understand things in a different way, we'll get you to think again about what you think you know, but most important, we're going to help you have confidence to have crucial conversations in your community and in your own home.
Join Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson, 1 to 3 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, the body of a kayaker who drowned in Little Dell Reservoir has been recovered. Second, President Biden called his campaign staff together to say he's staying in the race. And third, Mill Creek is one more city that's swapping a drone show for fireworks on this 4th of July. 82 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I am your co-host, Rusty Cannon, here with Adam Gardner. And Adam, it feels like a Friday. I don't know why. You know, I think it feels like a Friday is because
America. That's why.
That's right.
Rusty.
It is 4th of July tomorrow. I'm excited. This is one of my favorite holidays, and I love watching fireworks. And we're going to go through all the different places you can watch fireworks, spend some time with family and friends, and have just a lot of fun. In fact, you can kick off fun tonight an area which I'm quite familiar with in Davis County. Folks want to know in North Salt Lake. You can go up to Eaglewood Golf Course.
It's a good show.
Yeah, it is a really good show.
Bad parking, great show.
Yeah, you might need to hike. Be prepared to walk because parking really backs up. However, it is one of the best in my mind because they essentially close the golf course. You have all of that grass, that nice soft green grass where you can lay out and once it gets dark, obviously, watch some great fireworks. They've got all kinds of music and booths and things. We've gone several times, and it's one of my favorites, and that's actually tonight.
Where do you park when you go up there?
We've
because I mean it's up in the neighborhoods.
Yeah. I just usually up on Bountiful Boulevard up there is a good spot. You just need to be able to. You're going to plan to walk at least a mile.
What time do I need to get there?
I would, if you want good parking, I would get there late afternoon.
Oh man! All right.
It gets
you're
really
be there for
crowded.
5 or 6 hours.
Yeah, but I don't want to be too unreasonable. You can still get there.
And there's plenty to do while you're there.
Oh yeah, that's the point. There's all kinds of activities. I haven't looked at the schedule this year. In the past, they've had flyovers, a skydiver, those kinds of things. Plenty to do before dark. Live music, tons of food.
So if you live in Bountiful, North Salt Lake, and you go to this thing tonight, what do you do on the 4th of July?
Well, I think this year we try to find somewhere where you can watch several fireworks shows at once. The nice thing about in Davis County, where I'm at, you're going to have a show in Clearfield on the 4th at night. You're going to have a show in Kaysville, and then I believe in Layton.
I'm going to Layton,
yeah,
so that's where I'm from. My family still lives there, and so we go to the Layton fireworks that night, and that's a great show too.
Yeah.
I do remember a few years ago they accidentally lit. They set them all off at the exact same time.
Like by accident?
Like by accident. And so it was just a really cool boom and like an atomic bomb for about 38 seconds, and then the whole thing was just done, and everyone had to go home.
Yeah. And then there are a few years where we actually were spending some time up in Idaho. There's a huge fireworks show in Idaho Falls on the 4th. It's their freedom celebration they do up there, another massive one. But obviously we're talking about Utah today. There's all kinds of places up and down the Wasatch Front. Let's talk about some of these other ones that you can go and see. Holiday, it looks like, is going to be shooting some fireworks off at 10 p.m. Behind City Hall. They've got live music. You can go down into Utah County. Looks like in Lehigh, Thanksgiving Point is going to do a big bash with fireworks as well. It looks like most commonly they all start shooting at 10 p.m.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, and most of these places have parades. I know. I remember when I was running for office, and I had campaign shirts all made up, and my wife and my they were really little at the time, a couple of my kids, and we put together a parade route, and I had cities that I covered, and so we'd have to walk in parades. And when I was a campaign manager on a congressional campaign, we had to do every single year like 15 different parades in different cities, all up the 1st district.
Just all on the 4th?
And so a lot of times you'll have cherry days or peach days in Brigham City, and that's in September, and so like kind of around the harvest, and so you just have them spread out. And you try to do as many as you can on the 4th. We'd probably try and do 3 parades in the same day. And so my wife, when she was wearing, a shirt that said "Vote for Adam Gardner" for whatever, and she was like, "Is this going to be our life for forever? Are we just going to have to do campaigns?" And I was like, maybe. And I only was in office for about 3 years, and so we've stopped that. And then most recently, one of my favorite purchases for my business has been a parade golf cart. So I have a 6-passenger golf cart, and I wrapped it in the American flag, a big cool decal, and so we use that actually in parades for different candidates.
So that's coming to a city near you.
So that is coming to we did Taylorsville Days. We drove it around in Taylorsville Days, and that was about a week ago. And then we're going to do the Murray Parade and West Jordan in the same day. They kind of stagger those so you can do both. And then that finishes off the night with fireworks and games. And I know my hometown in West Jordan, they do a rodeo and have a big fireworks show by the rodeo arena. And so it's a great time.
Yeah, not only here, and then it continues. I think in the next week where I live in Farmington, Farmington Festival Days comes. I'm sure that's another parade that many elected officials put on the docket. I was going to ask about Salt Lake City. I couldn't remember if there are fireworks here, but it looks like the Gateway is going to host a 4th of July celebration with live music, karaoke, face painting from 6 to 10, and they will shoot fireworks at 10 p.m.
You know what? I've got to give credit to the Gateway. like the new owners of the Gateway, it is, I don't know who they are, but I know it was bought out and they put a bunch of money in the Gateway. It used to be a place where, like, if my wife took the kids, years ago, she didn't feel very safe going to the Gateway, and a lot of the places were out of business and vacant. Man, the Gateway's turned it around.
Really?
And it's really awesome. And I think this would be a great place for Salt Lake City residents and beyond to go and watch some fireworks. They used to have a really cool show at Sugar House Park.
Oh,
the
yeah,
city
I remember
would
going
light
to
it
it.
up. I mean, and I don't know if that was the city and the county or whatever, but man, that was a really cool show. And we've talked a lot on KSL News Radio about how it's not great for air quality. We just did a big segment on air quality, and now we're like, let's go blow
the
some
EPA
stuff
rule
up
again. Yeah.
And luckily, all of America's doing that, so it doesn't matter where the wind blows.
That's true.
Right? Everyone's culpable. So, but up at Sugar House Park, they used to have this really cool fireworks show, and the city and residents were like, "Hey, we don't like the pollution, we don't like the bad air, so you need to knock that off." And so I know they started a drone show. And I've heard that's pretty cool. I just think drones are different than,
How many years have they done the drones?
I don't know, but we were looking at our list.
I don't see it on here.
And we couldn't find that. So we'll have to update this information if they have that drone show in Sugar House
So
Park.
you can also go a little further south. Sandy is going to be doing a big party and shooting off fireworks at 10 as well. Now, let's not forget about Utah County. I think in Provo, Stadium of Fire. I couldn't remember the term. That's it. It looks like the Jonas Brothers will be there. I won't, but the Jonas Brothers will be there.
Man, Stadium of Fire puts on a great show.
They do. This is known as one of the biggest stadium fireworks shows, I believe, around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be a big one. Some other places out south to Riverton is also going to be shooting off at, I guess, at 10 p.m. If you could get a spot somewhere on a mountain, you could be watching fireworks up and down the Wasatch.
So we used to, when I lived in Ogden, we would go up above Weber State University off Skyline Drive.
Yeah.
And we would just park our car on the side of that mountain there on the overlook where that, it's kind of a cliff down the mountainside. And you can see them all over the valley. And in Salt Lake County, if you go up by, like in Daybreak, they have kind of by the Oquirrh Mountain LDS Temple, you can sit up there and you can see the fireworks all across the valley. So
that would be a good
that's
spot,
definitely an option. And when you
just caused a traffic problem.
If you're in Utah, well, now I'm not going to go. If you're in Utah County, go up by Y Mountain. Even if you're not in Lavelle Edwards Stadium, you can hike up to Y Mountain and watch the fireworks from up there. It's a huge, awesome show.
Yeah, so you have younger kids. Are you guys going to do sparklers, those kinds of things around the neighborhood driveways? Is that
yes, absolutely. My neighborhood is a little finicky about how late you go. So they're patriotic until about 10:45.
Okay.
And then they're done.
Okay.
And so we like to light off. I love fireworks.
It's so fun.
It's literally setting my money on fire.
It is. Literally,
and so,
yes.
But I love buying fireworks. I love that we have aerial fireworks now. That are the legal ones, of course.
Yeah.
And I love being able to set those off in my front yard, and my kids get just a big kick out of it. My dog hates it, but everybody else seems to love it.
Well, and we'd also want to mention, pay attention to code. I know in my area in Davis County.
Great point.
Yeah, in Farmington at least, there's a line we can't go across. Just pay attention to the rules.
Yeah, West Jordan's the same way. 5600 West, don't go west of that.
We want to keep fingers and toes.
And no fires.
Yes, exactly. But I think it's going to be another phenomenal holiday. Well, it's been fun doing this with you today again, and Boyd will be back soon. Thank you for joining us on KSL Inside Sources.
KSL FM Midvale.